Good evening. I'm calling the December 15th, 2022 meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee of Norfolk Borough Council to order. Chair Rickards is not with us tonight, so I will be chairing the meeting. So the first item on the agenda is the approval of the F&A minutes from the November F&A meeting. Any comments on the Myra?
No, okay.
Okay. We have to vote? I forget in committee. Yes, we do. That's what I thought. I was like, wait, yes, we do. All those in favor of approving the minutes? Thank you. Manager Bryant, do you have a report for us? Other than was in the packet, anything you wanted to say?
Honestly, no. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
I didn't have any questions. Ira, you?
No.
Okay. I would assume that's the same for the treasury report as well. Is there anything there you
I
wanted
would
to
like
mention?
to talk about that
Oh, okay.
actually, so
All
thank
right.
you for the opportunity. So the treasurer's report, let's see here. So our projection for the year now is off from where I wanted it to be for compared to budget. We're still, the borough is revenues will exceed expenditures by about $55,000 this year we're looking at. However, we had budgeted a bit of a larger number than that, and the primary reason for that is we had a number of invoices that came in late, some being 4 or 5 months late, and I spoke with the responsible contractor about that, and so we won't have that problem in the future, but that did throw off budget projections and estimates a little bit.
Okay. Well, as you said, the good news is we're still going to have revenues over in excess of expenses, so that's a great thing.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you're not saving any money right now on Michelle because she's probably paid through the end of the year or pretty close to it.
So she'll be paid. Yeah, her last paycheck will be on the 30th.
Yeah, so next year you'll save a couple
Yeah.
of bucks on it, but not this year.
Right.
And but we're still down like a chief
Yeah.
and an officer.
Right.
So, and presumably we're not making like pension payments on.
Well, that won't help, but that's already for.
That's like in a separate.
Well, no, for the chief, because of the timing.
Yeah.
For next year's pension payment, we actually saved money because of the timing of when the chief left. For the officer it left, that happened after we did the MMO,
Yeah.
so we won't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
So I just wanted to, I didn't want anyone to think I was like ignoring that or I was asleep at the wheel with anything of that.
No, of course not.
No, it's also like I'm sure you had this where you worked as well. Where it's hard to predict when like invoices are going to come in.
Yeah.
Right. Like it may have been that. Although maybe that's out of a different fund. We were paying that contractor. Well, now it looks like we paid him this year.
Right.
But if we had entered into prolonged negotiations, we might not have paid him until then. So it's like cash accounting, right?
Right. And well, no, we actually do accrual accounting, but the accrual period ends at the end of February.
Right.
So to that.
So it's hard to predict when they come in.
Yeah, we had a pretty major. This, if you want to just pick the one single thing, a silver bullet to explain the difference between projected and budgeted. We had a $90,000 payment, near the beginning of the year that was originally budgeted as a 2021 expense that we had to budget for 2022. So I don't have the numbers right here in front of me, but from memory, in 2021 we had a very, very hefty surplus, with the federal aid and the staffing and everything else going on. And that $90,000 difference, was baked into 2021, not 2022, so.
Look, at the end of the day, it really comes down to, sort of what the ongoing balance in the general fund is.
Yeah,
That's what we're gonna use to make these payments. And at the end of the day, I don't think we had enough non-recurring expenses as part of the budget request that we were necessarily gonna wipe out that balance anyway.
True.
Okay. I don't think there's no one in the room, and it doesn't look like there's anyone on Zoom, so we have no public comment tonight. Grants update.
Sure, so I have a couple comments on that. I'm hoping by our January meeting to know whether or not we got the PICO grant and the DCNR grant for master park planning. I also hope to know by our next meeting if we got the local share grant to help pay for the HVAC repairs here. And then let's see, I think that's our outstanding ones at the minute. In terms of waiting on, the federal grant that we applied for, it's a new grant, so I have no clue when we'll hear back on that. And then looking at future grant applications, I am meeting in January with folks at the Narber Cycling Club to talk about potentially applying for the MOCO 2040 grant to help pay for cycling-related infrastructure improvements.
Okay.
So we'll talk about that, and then again, maybe your January meeting, maybe your February meeting, I'll have some thoughts on that.
Cool.
And actually, it might be something that comes before infrastructure at the end of January, as opposed to this committee.
So, I mean, not to make your administrative life difficult at a time when you're short-staffed, the way this thing prints out, it's like, it's one of those things where because it's so wide,
Yeah.
it's on different pages, so it's it's a little hard to read.
I'll make sure, and I'll keep an eye on the formatting on that. That's something we can fix.
Yeah, I mean, even if you wind up having to, repeat it in,
Exactly.
or even have it be tiny, but then we can zoom out.
Right.
It's just right now you don't know which line is.
No, that's fair. Yeah, we can definitely fix that, Ira.
Yeah.
Anything else on grants?
Just real quick, I guess, on the outstanding ones. I mean, this isn't necessarily this committee, but we're ahead of schedule here. The EV chargers, I expect for us to get those in January, and that work will start, and then those grants will get closed out in March. I'm working right now on closing out the grant for the stormwater bump outs. 3 Elmwood, we're working on figuring out the specific closing date for that. We're probably looking at late January. Close on that, and then after we buy that property, I'll go through the process to
Get reimbursed.
get reimbursed and get that grant closed
Now,
out.
the EV chargers, so none are installed at this point,
Correct.
right? So we don't have obviously any history on how it worked.
Oh, no, we did these same grants for the 2 that we already have.
Okay, that's what I'm at. I'm sorry, I'm out of date. So those work, people are using them, it's good?
Oh, yeah, absolutely,
So it's the same one?
Oh, the EV chargers? Yeah.
Yeah, okay, well, I don't have an EV car yet.
No, I'm just amazed when I walk by them, there's always somebody with their car plugged in there, and they're different ones, it's not like I'm seeing.
Yeah, I last looked up the utilization rate 3 or 4 months ago, and it was something around 50-60% between the 2 chargers. So,
And I'm sorry, remind me, and we're collecting money on that, or?
oh yeah.
Or they are?
No, well, we are, and
Yeah,
then
but then
they're
we pay
taking a
it.
cut of it, yeah.
Oh, but, so we actually, well, I guess we're paying for the electricity. So
Exactly, so we're charging 15 cents a kilowatt hour,
Yeah.
which is about what we, working with PHS, is about we estimated the electric plus Flow's cut is.
Yeah, so we're breaking even.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I mean, I'm really excited about the notion of having it, I know it's complicated, but having it in places for people who can't install their own.
Yeah,
So, I mean, that's very novel. I mean, I think that, I mentioned that to someone, like at a party, and they were like, they were all excited about it. I may have given them your phone number or.
oh, cool.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, it's been really exciting. It's something I really haven't had a chance to chat with informed council about, but there's been a lot of positive buzz about it. I gave, I let Rob McGreevy know.
Right.
Pico invited me to present at a online webinar thing they had a month or two ago about it, and then a consultant working with PennDOT actually called and interviewed me the other day as PennDOT's trying to figure out their EV charging stuff.
Oh, neat.
And and Pico did a really nice press release talking about the borough and the work we're doing with this program. So there's been some really good press about it, and a lot of folks in the EV world are very excited to see how this turns out and plays out in our.
That's cool. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, anything else on grants?
Mhm.
All right. The action items for Borough Council is there, I guess, the computer replacement. Would you like to speak to that here or wait until the council meeting?
No, I can speak to it here because it's not, council won't really have an opportunity to discuss it.
Tonight.
Well, at all.
At all, okay.
To be honest, unless they really, really want to.
Okay, gotcha.
Of course.
Gotcha.
Me and Michelle Carroll, my former assistant, and Jim Spear, a borough volunteer, worked on a number of improvements to audio visual in here. I think we're just about there. And one of the key components was we had invested in this computer in order to allow other committees and entities to record their meetings and do hybrid meetings without a borough staff person having to be present or someone having to bring their own computer or whatever. We did a lot of research on what Zoom requires, and this computer does meet those minimum requirements. However, I found that for most meetings it works okay. For council meetings, it completely melts down. Any meeting that has any robust public participation, it just melts down. So, looking at the computers we have in the last couple of years, so in 2021, 2020 is when my predecessor got this computer. 2021 is when my assistant's computer was replaced, and in 2022 we replaced the office manager's computer. So I was hoping to add to the budget for 2023. This computer still works fine, but I was thinking if we went ahead and replaced this computer, we would stay on top of a capital replacement schedule for it, and then this computer could handle meeting stuff, and then this computer could become more of an emergency use or a loaner or something like that. So we got a quote from our IT company, who we have.
The old one?
Huh?
The old one, right?
The current one, yeah. Because we have to buy our hardware through them with our contract for a quote for a replacement computer, and that is in your packet. And I was hoping to add that to the 2023 budget.
Cool. What's your thinking on when you negotiate the contract with the replacement about getting rid of this thing where you have to buy the computer through them, or you think it's probably a good idea? Because they'll support it.
Before I started working here.
No,
so
I know.
2.5. No, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
2.5, 3 years ago, I went through a process of looking for an IT consultant, and in my last town, and pretty much, unfortunately, all of them have requirements. I mean, well, I welcome your opinion, Ira, with the work that you do, but
I understand why they would do that, because if you go out and buy some piece of junk on the internet, and then they're committing to support it, it doesn't work. I mean, at my wife's work, they recently bought her a new computer, so it would be one that they could support.
right.
Because it's just, there's too many variants. So I mean, I don't disagree. I think you know, it might be a different thing if you actually like bought what they told you, like a specified model, rather than actually have to buy it through them, but
Right.
whatever. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's a crazy price they're charging you here.
Oh, that's good to know, because I don't have a ton of,
Well,
For
I mean,
reference on
the
it,
problem
so-
is they're charging you to like, you know,
Yeah.
push to install.
and I've had
That's-
arguments with them in the past about that.
I mean, so maybe when you're talking to the new company, we're just talking informally here, when you talk to the new company, you might get a sense of like, because like you're spending $1,600 for the computer and like a third of that to install it. Just
Yeah.
that, so when you're like trying to get like a schedule of costs, you might like just get a sense of what percentage, you know, like if you have to buy these computers in the future, like how that's gonna look.
That's
Because quite
true.
frankly, it's not the 1645 that bothers me.
Me
It's the
neither.
650 that bothers me.
You have the same question I asked Samantha yesterday.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, is that usual? And apparently it is when your contract says you have to
Yeah,
buy
I mean,
this.
the funny thing is that, like, for my wife's crazy computer, it was probably worth this, it would be worth the 650, because she had like, the thing is like filled with stuff, but these computers don't have that much difference. There's not like, it's not $650 worth of work to like migrate the like 5 programs you have.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So, anyway.
Well, so much of our stuff is cloud-based now anyway.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, whatever, it's a good question to ask when you get to that point is, like, okay, what's it gonna be? Because look, it's a little bit like, when you were the contractor, they beat on the extras. And this is like, this may have been buried, but like, if every time we're paying like a
Yeah.
30%, 35% like upcharge to buy
Yeah.
a computer.
It's like, yeah. So do you need us to vote to approve this, or is this, I mean, the
So-
dollar level.
Veto rights, I think.
I was gonna,
Yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say, because I
No,
don't think the dollar level reaches a level where you need any kind of vote.
Just do it.
Okay, yeah, no, please, so that this doesn't crash in here anymore, because that's that's.
Well, I mean, I will tell you that I went to 2 meetings this week, and the Planning Commission and
Right, and Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec, and they didn't seem to have a problem.
Right,
And it's not, like, I don't think Jim had to rescue them on Monday.
True,
I think Todd had like just got working as Jim walked in.
true. And there actually was there was another meeting on Tuesday night as well, actually, where this computer was used, and you're right, it held up. So,
but if you think about when it hasn't, I think you're right, it's when it's like when it's trying to pick up lots of different things, I think it loses. Or maybe there are too many people in here using the Wi-Fi, maybe that's part of it too, I don't know.
I don't think so.
It's something about,
I think
Something
so.
extra.
Yeah, I mean, we looked up the RAM we looked up the specs again on this computer versus mine versus Michelle versus Missy's, and like Michelle and Missy's computers each have like 16 gigs of RAM, and mine has like 8 gigs, and this computer has like 2 gigs.
well, there you go.
That's a problem.
That's okay, that's, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
when I try to do too much on my computer while I'm Zooming.
Yeah, it's like, it just sitting there.
Anyway, let's go on here.
So is there anything else in action items for Borough Council items?
On that, because the budget council approved advertised, there have been, of course, because I don't have to re-advertise, and there have been no changes to the budget since we last talked about it.
Well, anything we have to change can be done with like an amendment, or.
After it's approved, yeah.
So we're approving it tonight, is that,
Mhm.
okay?
All right, so, information items, website redesign update.
Yeah, so I do have some good news on that. Actually, sorry, I need to just call real quick.
Sure.
I always forget to bring the council may not have some more opening. So we got our photos back from Todd Rothstein, and I think actually, I haven't had a chance to look yet, but I think actually this afternoon, Missy had an opportunity to start working them into the borough website. So Judge, take a look here and see if the website looks any different yet. Or maybe it's in like a test.
Yeah, I was gonna say, she may not have put it.
Yeah. So I'll review. I'll work with Missy and review what she has been working to add to the website. And I think next month I'll have something to really show off for us to check out where we're at and kind of figure out what our next move with the website is.
Sounds good. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the recurring park users questionnaire, I guess. So, you want to?
Sure, I'll start, and then actually I might want to assist from Ira here. So these questions before you. So I think I forget if we spoke at our last meeting or council spoke about this last month. Now the borough has a pretty good handle on our building functions here at 100 Conway and the recurring uses that go on here, as well as at 80 Windsor. We're now at a place where we really need to pay attention or spend some attention on Narberth Park and Sabine Park. And so the first step in that process is, we don't know what we don't know, is to gather some information about what is going on at the park right now. And that's what the goal of this questionnaire is. I do believe, I'm not sure if they had a quorum in order to make a recommendation on it, but I do believe last night Parks and Rec may have had a chance to look at some of these questions, or did they get that?
They did not look at it.
So these questions were shared with the Parks and Rec Board, and they're here before us tonight. So I was looking for feedback from the committee, as well as F&A's permission to move forward with working with Parks and Rec to get these questions answered by our recurring park users.
I have a couple of suggested changes to it, but Ira, you'd like to?
No, I really haven't
Okay.
dug into this. I was waiting for Parks and Rec to do it, and they just didn't do it last
Okay, all right. So I had two suggestions. One was in question number 9, to ask not only about the field house, but also the scoreboard building, because I know that in the past anyway, some organizations have used that for some storage of certain things. And so we'd want to know if they also have keys to both of those buildings then. So,
And it's really that, yeah.
yeah. And then question 10, I think it's a great question that we want to find out, but I would suggest editing it to be a little bit different, to ask more directly if you're following the policy. So I was suggesting that it read, when using borough property, does your organization comply with Narberth's policy, which prohibits discrimination based on race, sex, sexual orientation, or gender identity during the use of public space? So to just make it more, it's kind of like one of the questions we had on the volunteer application forms, are you aware of needing to make financial disclosures? And we decided, no, we should say, will you comply with the financial disclosures? Because that, you can say, yeah, I'm aware of it, but I'm not going to comply. We don't want that. So anyway.
I'm about that change, yeah.
Okay. So Ira, do go ahead and give approval for the office to work with getting these questionnaires out to the various users.
About the recurring.
Yes, the recurring users. Mm-hmm.
Because I think once that comes in, then Parks and Rec can look at that.
Yeah.
And they were, on a related note, semi-related, I explained to them why we lifted the Sabine parking lot out of the packet, which was to say that, it was complicated, and we didn't want to hold the whole thing up because of that. So
right, for the park rental.
Yes.
One of that
Well,
counts
I
as
mean,
not
like,
bad.
even some of them who were like questioning why we didn't prove it, then remembered that it was complicated. And as soon as I said that, because we didn't want to like hold the whole thing hostage, they got the point. So,
Anything else on the recurring park users question here?
No, I'll reach out to the Parks and Rec Board and work with them. I think they're working to schedule an annual park user meeting in the spring, and I think this will all kind of flow in well together.
That makes sense. Cool. Okay, the next item on the agenda is social media updates, and this was an idea of the chair of the committee, so I talked with Cindy about it a little bit since I knew she wasn't going to be here. Her suggestion is that we ask the chairs of the various committees to think about using social media updates, the weekly newsletter to communicate issues that are coming before their committees or that their committee is working on that the public might be interested in a much more than if they just happen to glance and see it on an agenda, but if they had a little more information about it, that might pique their interest a little more. And so her thought was that the chair of committees could prepare, a little description, maybe include some photos or a link to something if that's inappropriate, and send that information to someone in the office to have it posted on the borough's website or Facebook page, and then maybe put in the weekly newsletter if that makes sense for it to be in there. I mean, not everything maybe should go in there. So that's what Cindy's idea was. And so I would love to know if you had some thoughts about that, and we can see what Manager Ryan thinks of that.
I mean, I do think that I hear people grumbling to me that they don't know what's going on, and once you're staffed up again, and I think maybe we need to cull the weekly newsletter a little bit, because it tends to grow and things don't get removed. But I mean, I think that the comment people have made to me is when there's something, quote, important going on, like the EIT or the parking or whatever, that we need to go a little bit beyond that newsletter to get the word out. So I'm in favor of that. I'm not a big fan of posting things on social media and then getting into a debate about it there, but in a more of an announcement mode. And it appears as though, for better or worse, a lot of people still use Facebook, so,
Well, and this was a question I had for Manager Bryant, but what I wasn't aware of is that when anything that's posted on the Narberth Facebook page, comments are turned off.
Well, then that's great.
And so, so that, yeah, I think that, well, before I say anything more about that, do you have any thoughts, Manager Bryant?
So I think that is good, because from my perspective, if something just came from any one person, I could see that getting overwhelming, or conflicting things would come in. So I think having it come through a committee is a good way to do it. And I think that I will say with the EIT, we did do
No, I remember, yeah.
Okay. But in general, yeah, I think that's a good.
I was just I was using that as an example.
Gotcha.
Of the kind of thing that should go there, but I do remember, and of course the parking wound up there because Andrea did it, but it might have been better if it hadn't been her, because when she did it in a group that allowed comment, and it turned into the goal was to just tell people that it's going on, so they can't say that, or so they have an opportunity to to comment. The fact that you had 21 public meetings aside.
I know.
I'm fully aware.
I know, this is how it goes.
Yeah, so I would say anything that comes from a borough committee or any other I'd say in a handful of external bodies, like I would say like the Narber Civic Association or the Narber Business Association, I would also be willing to like post on there, but I would want some parameters on it, you know, that way I have a leg to stand on if I have to like tell someone like no to something. Because like we get all sorts of requests about stuff to post on the website from, you know, commercial as well as irrelevant nonprofit entities. And I had to tell them like, no, like we don't post that sort of stuff on our website, so.
Yeah, I think if we'd want to do that, we probably should think about making a list and
Yeah,
then having council say yes or no to that, just as a,
well, and that's my last, and I'm just, you know, thinking of things that happened in my last job. Yeah, I did end up having council make a list because problems.
yeah, and that's, I just would hate to see that happen. So maybe we could talk about that after this gets underway for committees, so.
I think for now, I think for the moment, it's easy just say any borough committee that if the committee sends a text and photo for whatever the thing is, like it needs to be more than just like, hey, we would like something posted about parking.
No, that's not. The idea is not to create work for office staff. The idea is, no, we should be giving you what we'd like to have.
Yeah, like I'm willing to go the last mile, so to speak, because that's part of the staff have to do. Like I'm not opening up, you know, the Facebook page to borough staff to be able to post on it.
Right.
But yeah, if the committees could do everything short of the actual posting and get it to me, and yeah, then me and the admin team can take it from there.
So Ira, the other thought that I had was, you know, it gets posted on the Narberth Facebook page, the Narberth Borough Facebook page. I don't know that people regularly think to look there. In fact, I'm going to say that they probably don't, given some of the comments on Facebook of people who clearly look at some of the Facebook groups regularly, and say, well, I've never heard of such and such a thing that the borough's considering, you know. So my thought was maybe council president could let the administrators of some of the local Facebook groups know once this starts that we're going to be doing that, so that he could encourage them to share those posts on their Facebook groups.
Is anybody going to be sitting here at all?
No, we don't have that. Sorry, I'm going to start a court report for the council meeting tonight.
Yes, we're actually in the Finance and Administration Committee meeting right now, so
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's
Don't
okay.
worry about it, it's a public meeting.
Yeah, it's a public meeting, and it's hard to tell if that's what's going on. So anyway, that was a thought that I had too, that we could maybe ask the council president to do that, because then I think that might get people aware of, oh, there's really good information on the Narberth Borough Facebook page. I should be looking there regularly too. So that just was a thought that I had. So it sounds like we like this idea. So what can we do now at this point? Is this maybe something that we suggest to council president and come?
Yeah, I'm not really,
Yeah, I was like, where do we, I'm not sure what the next step is, I guess.
maybe that's a question for Cindy.
Okay. So we could come back to this at our January meeting.
I mean, we could. Well, I mean, we can talk to Cindy, and if she just like knows that, like, hey, we'll just tell council or whatever.
Okay. All right. So we'll talk to her about next steps. Okay. And then, is there anything else on the social media updates? Are we good on that?
No.
Okay. The next item is the Friends of Narberth Parks 509A creation. Would you like me to recommend what we were thinking of for this, or?
Well, maybe I can just start by just refreshing on why we're talking about this, and then, you know, there's some decision points that need to be made that maybe I can help talk through. So, the purpose of this idea came up in regards to creating an opportunity for people in the community who want an opportunity to donate to the borough for a specific purpose, in this case being, we'll have to, one of the things we'll have to decide is what the specific purpose is. But the initial idea was for the acquisition and improvement of open space in the borough. And improvement, I mean, not like build buildings on it, but, like.
Get rid of invasive plants and restore a stream bank and things like that.
Yeah. And so this is the mechanism in which municipalities do this. It's what I did in my last municipality. It's what our solicitor is familiar with in the municipalities he's worked with. So by having an organization like this, people could donate money to it. The uses of that money would be restricted, and people would get a tax write-off the same as donating to a 501c3 or other sort of entities like that. So, there are a number of decisions we need to talk through in order to actually make this happen. One being we need to specify what the purposes of the 509A3 is. We also need to talk through how money would come in and come out of it, in the sense that there are two ways you can do it. We can, I guess, talk more about as we come to each point, but and then we need to also decide how many people are going to be on the board and what sort of folks we would want on the board of the entity. So those are the three kind of decision points that I think I see and that the borough solicitor outlined with some recommendations for us.
Well, my thought was, these are kind of, there's especially deciding who gets to say on how the money, who gets to say what happens with the money, feels to me like a big enough question that I felt like we should have all three of the Finance and Administration Committee members present to talk about that first, so that we could then have a recommendation to council that's coming from all three of us. So I was wondering if maybe we should table that discussion until Cindy is able to be at the meeting with us. Does that? Because I don't think this is time sensitive in that we need to get moving on this right away.
Yeah, and there's as far as I know, no one's come to me and said, they have like $100 million at the borough, but they need to do it, by next Thursday or something.
We couldn't even do that anyway, because you can't get an IRS tax number to be able to, they're not gonna do that fast anyhow. That takes a while. But also we don't have anything that we would be spending that money on right away. We're not even in a position to do anything like that. And we won't be for a good while, I would imagine. So anyway, that was my thought, because I just felt like these seem like pretty big questions to me. And I felt like it made sense for three of us to talk through those, come with a recommendation to council, so that council has a little more foundation in what they're talking about.
And just make sure we're all on the same page in terms of any time sensitivity. If anyone did want to donate to this entity to support the acquisition of 3 Elmwood, the good news is, because we are taking out a loan for that purchase, half of that loan is going to get reimbursed by DCNR, but the borough is still going to pay off the other half of that loan. So even after we close on 3 Elmwood, if we got donations after that, we could use that money, to put towards the loan payment.
Exactly, yes. It's not like we need the money beforehand.
Exactly.
Right.
So, to what extent do the people who donate to this have a say in what the money goes to?
Yeah, so that's something you have to be careful about. That's a great question. And that technically, if you donate money to this organization, it can be used for any of the purposes listed for the organization. That being said, in the spirit of doing the right thing, I would strongly advise against using any donated money for any purpose other than if there was an express purpose given. And so what I did, my last job was I kind of kept a system of escrows, because there were, just like here in Arbor, there were a few different pieces of open space in New Britain. and someone might say, hey, I want this for the money to go to the nature reserve, or I want this money to go, to Orchard Park or whatever, and, I'd make sure I kept all that straight. And there's a certain amount of like any nonprofit that the board would need to do. I do not have the capacity to do it here. Donor engagement, being like, hey, this is how we spent your money, or how we're thinking of spending your money, and all that kind of thing.
Well, so in the world I come from, they refer to them as unrestricted and restricted
Yeah,
gifts.
agreed.
And on a restricted gift, well, on both, there's something called a gift agreement. But on the restricted gifts, that's where it gets into the details. And there are people whose restricted gifts we don't take,
Right.
because the restrictions are such that, like, it's either against the philosophy of the organization receiving it, or, not legal.
Yeah.
So.
That's a good point. Yeah. Thankfully, I never ran into that problem, but that is good. That is good to know.
No, but I'm just saying, I don't know, I mean, like, I can imagine that the guy who lives on Elmwood, on the, like, unit block of Elmwood, is giving money, doesn't want it, he wants it used for the Elmwood acquisition or
Gotcha, yeah.
something else. So I think
Yeah,
we
I
have to
agree.
at least, like, allow them to designate which of the spaces.
I agree.
And whether he, that person gets to say whether it's used for, like, improvements to the property versus covering the cost of the acquisition. That's like another level of detail, but I'm just saying those are the kind of things you have to.
No, that's true. That's really, yeah. I had a form in my last job for that sort of thing. We'll need to develop something similar here.
And I guess, it doesn't necessarily apply in this case, but I know there are, like, and maybe the numbers aren't big enough here to even worry about this, but the other issue that you can have is if you let the person, make gifts in like payments over time, right? And then
Yeah.
and then you go ahead and spend
Yeah,
money.
Yeah.
It's
I don't
called
think,
pledge financing.
yeah. I don't think we should do that.
Yeah, okay. Good.
And I'll just share real quick for the benefit of this group and for someone watching this recording later. Like, this is the form that I had in my last job. This is the sort of stuff the new group will need to come up with. This expenditure request form, your name, description of request, request an amount, and that sort of thing. So, there's a whole bunch of logistics, after the board is created, that the board is gonna have to figure out like that.
Mhm. Okay, well, anyway, I don't want to get too far into the weeds. I'm just telling you that, I think the minimum is we have to at least allow them to designate which property it goes to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair.
So, does it make sense to revisit this then at our January meeting?
When is the January meeting?
The 19th,
Yes.
Oh, I'll be back, okay.
all three of us, and we can come up with a good, strong recommendation for our council.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else that we need to talk about tonight? No? Okay, well, we will meet again on January 19th. Thank you. I couldn't come up with that date off the top of my head. And I will adjourn the meeting.